She thought he'd never look at her that way until he closed the door behind them. She had perfected the art of being invisible to him. Not ignored, never that. He was too decent for that, too observant, too careful, but invisible in the way that mattered. The way that meant she existed safely outside the realm of possibility. Mara Ellison had accepted that years ago. She stood just inside the conference room doorway, tablet hugged to her chest, waiting for the meeting to end. The glass walls reflected her faintly neutral dress, hair pinned back, posture straight. Competent, unremarkable, exactly how he liked things. Across the room, Julian Cole finished speaking, his voice calm and authoritative, the room tuned to him without effort. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. People leaned in when he spoke as if clarity itself followed him. "Let's move forward with the revised timeline," Julian said. "Mara, circulate the summary." He didn't look at her when he said her name, he never did. "Already prepared," she replied automatically. His head dipped in acknowledgement, that was all. The meeting broke apart, chairs scraped, conversations sparked. Julian gathered his notes with practiced efficiency, already shifting to the next problem. Mara waited as she always did until everyone else had left. "Do you need anything else?" she asked. Julian glanced up then, briefly, polite, neutral, "No, thank you." She nodded and turned to go, the familiar hollow settling quietly in her chest. This was the rhythm they had always known. She had met Julian 3 years earlier, fresh out of a job she'd loved and into one she desperately needed. He'd been assigned as her department lead, brilliant, reserved, unapproachable in the way men who carried too much responsibility often were. He'd never crossed a line, never lingered, never given her a reason to hope, which was why she trusted him, and why she'd taught herself not to want more. That night the building emptied faster than usual. A system outage had delayed half the staff, and by the time Mara finished coordinating reports, the hallways were quiet, too quiet. The lights dimmed automatically, casting long shadows across the floor. She checked the time and sighed. "Of course," she muttered. As she stepped into the elevator, the doors slid open again. Julian, he paused when he saw her, as if surprised but not displeased. "Long day," he said. "Seems like it," she replied. They stood on opposite sides of the elevator, the silence comfortable in a way she'd grown used to. This was safe territory, neutral ground. The elevator descended, then jolted, lights flickered. The car shuddered and stopped. Mara's breath caught. "Did we just—" "Yes," Julian said calmly. "Looks like we did." The emergency lights clicked on, bathing the space in a soft amber glow. He pressed the call button. Waited, tried again. "Maintenance will be notified," he said, "but it may take a while." Mara nodded, willing her pulse to slow. She hated small spaces. He didn't know that. He didn't know a lot of things about her. "That's fine," she said. "I'm not in a rush." That was a lie. Minutes passed. Julian leaned back against the wall, arms crossed loosely, not tense, not impatient. "You're very calm," he observed. "I've learned how to be," she replied. He glanced at her then, not the quick acknowledgement she was used to, but a longer look, assessing, curious. "Most people don't," he said. She shrugged. "Someone has to hold things together." Something in his expression shifted, gone in a second. She told herself she imagined it. The elevator didn't move. Julian checked his phone, no signal. "Building systems are still rebooting," he said. "We might be here a bit." Mara nodded again, her fingers tightening around her tablet. "Are you all right?" he asked. "Yes," she said too quickly, then softer, "just not fond of elevators." He straightened slightly. "Why didn't you say so?" She smiled faintly. "Because it doesn't change anything." He studied her. "It changes how I should respond." The words landed unexpectedly. She looked up. He wasn't looking at her the way he looked at colleagues. There was no authority there, just attention, the kind that felt personal. Her stomach fluttered uncomfortably. She looked away. The doors finally slid open on a darkened floor. Emergency lighting guided them into the hallway. Julian stepped out first, scanning the space. "Let's take the stairs," he said. "Safer than waiting here." They walked in silence, the sound of their footsteps echoing. At the stairwell, he reached for the door, then paused. The building was quiet, too quiet. Security protocol might lock this section temporarily, he said. We should move quickly. He pushed the door open. They stepped inside. The door closed behind them with a soft but definitive click. And locked. Mara froze. Did that just— Yes, Julian said. She laughed weakly. You have to be kidding. I'm not. He tried the handle, nothing. The stairwell was narrow, concrete walls close on either side. Emergency lights hummed overhead. Mara's chest tightened. Julian turned to her immediately. Hey, he said gently, it's all right. She swallowed. I know, I just need a second. He nodded. Take all the time you need. He didn't crowd her, didn't reach for her, just stood there giving her space but not distance. And then something happened that made her heart stumble. He looked at her, not politely, not professionally. He looked at her like he was seeing her, really seeing her, the way he'd never looked before. Her breath caught. She shook her head slightly, trying to dismiss it. You're imagining things. He never looked at her that way, never. Julian seemed to realize he'd lingered too long. His gaze shifted, control reasserted. Maintenance will unlock this shortly, he said. We're fine. She nodded, but her pulse didn't slow, because she knew one thing with sudden, terrifying clarity: the door was closed, and something between them had just changed. The stairwell door stayed locked for 14 minutes. Mara counted them. She counted the hum of the emergency lights, the steady rhythm of her breathing, the way Julian shifted his weight once, just once, like he was fighting the instinct to move closer. Neither of them spoke at first. The silence wasn't awkward, it was charged. You can sit, Julian said finally, gesturing to the step behind her. If you want. I'm fine, she replied, though her legs ached. He didn't insist. That somehow made everything worse. When maintenance finally arrived and the door unlocked with a sharp click, Mara exhaled in relief she hadn't realized she was holding. Julian stepped aside, letting her go first. After you, he said. Their shoulders brushed as she passed him, just barely. It felt intentional even though she knew it was. They didn't mention the stairwell again, not then. The next few days were different, not in any way she could explain to someone else, not in a way that would sound rational if she tried to say it out loud. But she felt it. Julian started pausing when she spoke. Really listening, not multitasking, not half-focused. During meetings, his gaze found her more often, not lingering, never obvious but present, a subtle acknowledgement before he responded to her ideas. Once, when someone interrupted her mid-sentence, he lifted a hand. Let her finish. The room went quiet. Mara's pulse spiked. He didn't look at her when he said it. That almost made it worse. She told herself it meant nothing. Julian was fair, thoughtful, he always had been, but fair didn't explain the way his voice softened when he said her name now. Mara, not curt, not neutral, careful. She hated that she noticed. Late one evening, she found herself alone in the office kitchen, staring at the coffee machine like it might betray her. You're still here. Julian's voice came from the doorway. She jumped slightly. Just finishing something. He nodded, stepping inside. He loosened his tie, a small, casual gesture she'd never seen before. Long week, he said. Seems like it. They stood there, the silence folding around them again. She reached for a mug. He did too. Their hands brushed. This time, neither of them moved away immediately. The moment stretched: breath, awareness, the quiet thrum of something unspoken. Julian pulled back first. Sorry, he said. It's fine, she replied. It was. After that, he became distant, professional again, polite, controlled. Mara noticed immediately. She told herself it was relief she felt. It didn't feel like relief. The project deadline loomed closer, tension running high across the floor. One evening, an unexpected error surfaced, small but dangerous. Mara caught it just in time. She brought the report straight to Julian's office. This needs to be fixed before morning, she said, if it goes out like this. I know, he said, scanning it quickly. Good catch. He looked up. This time he didn't look away. That stairwell, he said quietly. You were afraid. She blinked. You hid it well, he continued. But you shouldn't have had to, her chest tightened. That's not your responsibility, no, he agreed, but I noticed. She swallowed. You don't usually. Something like regret crossed his face. I should have. The words felt dangerously close to something else. She stepped back. We should focus on the report. Yes, he said immediately. Of course, but the distance didn't return the way it used to. The night before the deadline, a storm rolled in, thunder rattling the windows, rain lashing the glass. Most of the staff left early. Mara stayed, of course she did. Julian found her hunched over her desk an hour later. You're done, he said. I just need to. You're done, he repeated, gentler this time. She looked up at him, exhausted. You don't get to decide that. No, he agreed, but I get to ask. She sighed, fine. 5 more minutes. He waited. When she finally shut down her computer, he handed her her coat without comment. Let me walk you out, he said. The parking garage was nearly empty. Rain echoed loudly in the open space. They stopped beside her car. This is where I say good night, she said, forcing a light tone. Yes, he replied. Neither moved. Mara, he said suddenly. She looked up. I need to say something, and I need you to understand I'm not asking for anything. Her pulse spiked. Okay, she said. I've been looking at you differently, Julian admitted, and I don't know when it started, but it did. Her breath caught. I thought you should know, he continued, so you don't think it's in your head. For a moment the world felt very, very small. She shook her head softly. You don't look at me that way. He stepped back as if giving her space again. I do, he said quietly. I just didn't allow myself to. The words landed too heavy, too real. She opened her car door quickly. This shouldn't happen, she said. You know that. I know. She looked at him one last time. Then please don't. He nodded once. I won't, he said. She drove away with her heart pounding, mind racing, because the worst part wasn't that he'd admitted it. It was that a part of her had always known. And now that the possibility existed, now that she knew she hadn't imagined it, there was no going back to invisible. Mara avoided him for 3 days, not obviously, not dramatically, just strategically. She adjusted her schedule so she arrived earlier and left later. She routed questions through email instead of stopping by his office. She chose the long way around the floor just to avoid passing his door. It was ridiculous. It didn't work, because Julian noticed everything. On the 4th day he caught her, literally. She tripped over the edge of the carpet near the conference room, stupid, careless, and the next thing she knew, strong hands were gripping her arms, steadying her before she hit the ground. You okay? He asked, too close. Her fingers curled instinctively into his jacket. I'm fine, she said quickly, stepping back. He didn't let go right away, not until she met his eyes. Something flickered there, concern, restraint, something deeper he was clearly trying to bury. You don't have to avoid me, he said quietly. I'm not, she lied. He studied her for a long moment, then he nodded once. Okay. But his hand lingered a second too long before he let go. The business trip was unavoidable. 3 days, 1 hotel, 2 adjoining conference rooms. When the itinerary hit her inbox, Mara stared at it like it might disappear if she refused to acknowledge it. It didn't. Julian didn't mention it at first. Neither did she. But the tension followed them onto the plane, into the airport car, and straight into the marble-floored hotel lobby. You're on the 7th floor, the concierge said. Rooms are adjacent. Mara froze. Julian's jaw tightened. Thank you, he said smoothly. The elevator ride was silent, too silent. When the doors opened, Mara stepped out quickly. Good night, she said, already reaching for her door. Mara, she paused. He didn't move closer. I meant what I said, Julian said. I won't cross a line you don't want crossed. Her chest tightened. That doesn't make this easier. No, he agreed. It makes it honest. She nodded, unsure what else to say, and slipped into her room. She didn't sleep. The conference was a blur of presentations, negotiations, and polite smiles. Julian was flawless, controlled, focused, professional. It should have reassured her. Instead, it unsettled her, because now she knew how much effort that control took. That evening, the power went out. Not dramatically, just a sudden flicker, then darkness. Mara's room was plunged into silence, broken only by the sound of rain against the windows. She fumbled for her phone, no signal. A knock came at her door. Her heart jumped. She opened it cautiously. Julian stood there, illuminated by the dim emergency lights in the hallway. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "Are you?" He nodded. "They're saying it might be a while." She hesitated, then stepped aside. "Do you want to come in?" He paused just long enough for her to notice. "Only if you're sure," he said. She swallowed. "I am." The door closed softly behind him. They sat on opposite ends of the couch, distance carefully maintained. Rain thundered outside. "This feels familiar," she said lightly. "The stairwell," he replied. "Yes." The silence stretched again. "Mara," Julian said suddenly, "tell me to leave if this is too much." She didn't answer right away. "I don't want you to leave," she said finally. He exhaled slowly, like he'd been holding his breath for days. "But I don't want this to turn into something we regret," she added. He nodded. "Then we don't rush, we don't pretend, we just tell the truth." She looked at him. "What truth?" "That I want you," he said simply. "And that wanting you doesn't mean I'll take something you don't want to give." Her pulse roared in her ears. "I've never been looked at like that," she admitted. "Not by you." He shifted closer just slightly. "I've always looked at you," he said. "I just told myself it was safer not to want more." She laughed softly. "We're terrible at being safe." "Yes," he said, "we are." Thunder cracked overhead. Without thinking, she reached for him, just his sleeve, just enough to feel him there. Julian froze. "Mara," he warned gently. "I know," she whispered. "I know." He didn't pull away, neither did she. When his hand finally covered hers, the contact was careful, reverent, like he was afraid to break something precious. "This is the line," he murmured. "Right here," she nodded. "And we're standing on it," she said. His thumb brushed her knuckles. "Tell me to stop." She didn't. Instead, she leaned in, not enough to kiss him, just enough that their foreheads touched. The world narrowed to breath and warmth and restraint. "I don't want to pretend anymore," she whispered. His voice was rough. "Neither do I," but still, he didn't kiss her. When the power came back on minutes later, the moment shattered. Lights flickered. Reality rushed back in. Mara pulled away first. "We should stop," she said, voice shaking. "Yes," he agreed. He stood immediately, creating space again. "I'll go," he said. She walked him to the door. Before he left, he looked at her one last time. "This changes things," he said. "Yes," she replied. "It already has." After he left, Mara slid down against the door, heart pounding, because now the truth was undeniable. They weren't fighting attraction anymore. They were fighting time, and neither of them knew how long control would last. The distance between them wasn't loud. It didn't come with arguments or slammed doors. It was quiet, careful, devastating. Mara returned from the business trip 2 days early, citing personal reasons. Julian didn't question it. He approved the request without comment, without looking up from his screen. That hurt more than she expected, because part of her had wanted him to stop her. Back at the office, everything was normal, too normal. Julian spoke to her only when necessary. Emails were brief, meetings were efficient. He never stood too close, never let his gaze linger. The control was back, perfect, impeccable, and it felt like a lie. Mara found herself watching him when she thought he wouldn't notice. The way his jaw tightened when someone interrupted her. The way his eyes tracked her across the room before he forced himself to look away. He was pretending again, so was she. The breaking point came on a Thursday night, late, quiet, the office mostly empty. Mara stayed longer than usual, pretending to finish reports she'd already completed. She knew Julian was still there, his office light always stayed on too long. She told herself she was just grabbing her coat. She was. His door was ajar. She knocked once softly. Mara, his voice was cautious. Is something wrong? Yes, she said. No, I don't know. She stepped inside before she lost her nerve. The door closed behind her, not accidentally this time. Julian didn't move toward her. Didn't touch her, that somehow made it harder. We can't keep doing this, she said, words rushing out. This pretending that nothing happened. His eyes darkened. I agree. Then why are you acting like it did, she asked. Like you didn't look at me the way you did, like you didn't say what you said. Because acting on it would cost too much, he said quietly, her chest tightened. Cost you what? Everything, he answered honestly. My position, your career, your reputation. Your freedom to walk into a room without whispers following you. So you're protecting me? She snapped. I'm protecting us, he said, from something that could destroy you. She shook her head, hurt bleeding into her voice. You don't get to decide that for me. I know, he said, and that's why this is killing me. Silence fell between them, raw, exposed. I've spent my entire life being the sensible choice, Mara said softly. The safe one, the invisible one, and now that I finally want someone, you're telling me it's too dangerous. Julian crossed the room then, stopped just short of touching her. I want you more than I've wanted anything, he said. That's exactly why I'm afraid. Her eyes stung. I don't need you to save me, I know, he said. I just don't want to be the reason you regret trusting someone. She laughed bitterly. Too late. That hit him hard. Mara, she stepped back. I need space, she said, because if I stay, I'll keep hoping. And I can't keep hoping for something you're too scared to choose. He didn't stop her when she left. That hurt most of all. The separation wasn't official. It didn't need to be. Mara requested a transfer to a different department the following week. Julian approved it. No comment. No protest? He stared at the signed form for a long time after she left his office. Then he closed the folder like it burned. Weeks passed. Mara tried to convince herself she'd done the right thing. She threw herself into work, took on more projects, smiled more, spoke less. But every quiet moment echoed with what hadn't happened. Every closed door reminded her of the one he'd shut them behind. Julian unraveled slowly, subtly. He missed meetings, snapped at executives, stared out windows longer than necessary. The office noticed, so did he. One night, alone in his penthouse, he replayed the moment in the hotel room, the restraint, the honesty, the way she'd looked at him like he was worth the risk. He'd chosen safety and lost everything that mattered. The final push came unexpectedly, a board review, a promotion opportunity. A chance to restructure leadership. Julian stared at the offer for hours, then he made a decision. Mara was packing up her desk one evening when she heard footsteps behind her. She didn't turn around. I know you asked for distance, Julian said, but I need to say this. Her hands stilled. I was wrong, he continued, about what this would cost. She turned slowly, his eyes were steady, determined. I resigned, he said, her breath caught. You what? I stepped down, he repeated. Effective immediately, the board accepted. She stared at him, stunned. Why would you do that? Because I realized something, he said. The only thing I was protecting was my fear. Silence pulsed between them. I won't ask you for anything, Julian said. I just needed you to know that if you choose to walk away, it won't be because I was too afraid to meet you halfway. Her voice trembled. You gave up everything. He shook his head. No, I finally chose something dangerous, something real, something her. Mara didn't answer him right away. She couldn't, because if she spoke now, her voice would break, and she refused to let this moment be swallowed by tears before she understood it. You didn't have to do that, she said finally. Julian nodded. I know. You could have kept everything, she continued. Your position, your power, your control. I already lost the one thing that mattered, he replied softly, and I wasn't willing to live with that mistake. The office around them felt unreal, desks, lights, the quiet hum of a building that had once defined their boundaries. Now it felt small. Come with me, he said suddenly. Where? Anywhere that isn't here. She hesitated, then nodded. They walked without a plan out into the evening air. Down streets washed in amber streetlight, past cafes closing for the night and couples laughing too loudly, Julian finally stopped in front of a quiet park. "This is where I realized I was in love with you," he said. Mara looked at him, startled. "You were standing right there," he continued, pointing toward a bench, "arguing with a vendor on the phone because they were trying to overcharge the company. You were furious, brilliant, completely unafraid." She smiled faintly. "I don't remember that." "I do," he said. "Because I remember thinking that woman doesn't need to be protected, she needs to be chosen." Her throat tightened. "I was so busy telling myself I couldn't want you," he went on, "that I never stopped to ask whether you wanted me." She swallowed. "I did." "I know that now." Silence settled between them, different from before, not tense, open. "You once told me you were tired of being invisible," Julian said. "I need you to know something." He stepped closer. "I see you completely and I'm not letting go again." Her breath shook. "You can still walk away," he added. "I won't follow, I won't pressure, I won't trap you in a choice." She laughed softly through her tears. "You always did like clean exits." He smiled. "Occupational hazard." She reached for his hand. He didn't move until she touched him first. "This isn't about you rescuing me," she said, "or proving anything. I know, this is about choosing each other," she finished, "even when it's scary." His fingers tightened around hers. "I choose you," he said. And this time there was no hesitation. The kiss wasn't explosive, it was intentional, slow, certain. A decision made with mouths and breath and hands that finally knew they were allowed. When they pulled apart, Mara rested her forehead against his. "So," she murmured, "what happens now?" Julian smiled. "Now," he said, "we stop pretending." Months later it felt strange how ordinary happiness became. Julian took a consulting role, less power, more freedom. Mara flourished without the invisible weight of restraint. She spoke more, took up space, let herself be seen. Together they learned what it meant to be equals, not boss and assistant, not protector and protected, just two people who finally chose honesty over fear. One evening, long after work hours were no longer a shared habit, Mara found Julian in the kitchen of his new place. Their place, barefoot, sleeves rolled up, struggling with a recipe. "You resigned for this," she teased. "I would resign again," he said gravely, "if it meant I never had to attend another board meeting." She laughed and kissed his cheek. "You never looked at me," she said suddenly. He paused. "I did," he corrected gently. "I just didn't think I was allowed to want what I saw." She met his eyes. "Well," she said, "now you are." His smile was slow, certain. And when he pulled her close this time, there was no whisper of restraint left, only the quiet confidence of two people who knew exactly what they were holding onto. She had thought he'd never look at her that way until he did, and refused to let go.